guys tonight. I am your commissioner for District 6. I was here last year right after the budget. I was appointed to the Board of Commissioners to fill Tim Williford's remaining term May of last year. So I was there less than 30 days before the budget was passed. I didn't vote for last year's budget, and I didn't vote for this year's budget as well, and I'll go into that a little bit. What I'd like to do at least is explain what's happened in my first year essentially as a county commissioner. It's been a very active year for county commissioners' terms. Once again, 30 days in, we had our budget, so I had a lot of work to do to educate myself on the budget. This is this year's budget, but it's a little over 100 pages long, and being a new commissioner, it took me a little while to go over it and understand it. We moved right out of our budget work session and the budget, and the hospital deal came up. So all of a sudden, we started educating ourselves on the hospital, and is Duke Light Point, is that where we wanted to go? We worked with the hospital, the board of directors there, and that was a challenging time. And once again, I'm a new commissioner, and we've got our hospital, which is very important to everybody. And just with the people that were adamantly against what we were doing and the people that were adamantly for moving on with Duke Light Point, you can tell that we care about our hospital. And if you look down east and the troubles that some of the smaller counties and smaller community hospitals are having now, I felt like it was the best decision that we could make at the time. Our hospital had a large amount of reserves, and it's something that we wanted to secure and not have to dip in the reserves and try to grow it longer and put us in a worse shape to sell the hospital. The only thing the county had as far as the hospital goes is a reverter clause, so really the board decided who the partner was going to be. However, we held the key to making it happen, if it would go through or not. So we certainly vetted Duke Light Point and tried to learn. And I honestly, I think time will tell if it was the best decision. I think it's the best decision we had to make at the time. So then, the hospital deal went through, and then we started looking into our county manager situation, and we've hired a new county manager, Denise Steinagel. She was our assistant county manager. She's been there since 1994, I believe, no, 96. So she is well versed in Wilson County and Wilson County government and what our departments do. And now she's stepped into the leadership role, and she's doing a great job. And I tell this to everybody, like Ellis Williford or hate Ellis Williford, Denise has done a great job bringing our board together. When I sat on the board, it's 4 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and there was no communication at all. Now we're communicating and operating very well together. And so, that was a real trying time because Ellis has been our county manager since 1994. So 2 difficult decisions back to back, and then that really fortunately quietened down toward the end of last year. And then the occupancy tax came up, and that was something that we had been working on too. And then moved into this year's budget. And one concern I had last year during budget session, I may have mentioned it to those that were here last year when I talked about the budget, is we spent an hour and 15 minutes working as a commissioners board of 7 on the budget. The budget was voted on an hour and 15 minutes, which I don't think is fair to the taxpayers of Wilson County. So one thing I wanted to do this year was spend a lot more time as a group on the budget. We had 1 extra work session, and we did something that I asked to do last year. We actually did this year and did a page-by-page review, which I think is very important. It's important to me, so I can learn the ins and outs of every page, individual page. But also I think it's important because I don't know that everybody does look at the page-by-page budget. So anyways, exciting year. All the commissioners are up for re-election this year. I've got an opponent, Tony Gaetano, running against me, and so anyways, what I'd like to do now is really to talk about the budget this year. It was really a good budget. Denise did a great job for her first budget, putting it together and presenting it to us. The main arguing point in there was the community college and what we're going to do with the Lee gift, which is the Lee Motor Company campus, which is 10 acres and 5 buildings. John Lee and Tim Barnell have graciously offered it to the county. The question is it something that we want to take on? So we debated that. We allotted $1,038,000 to the Lee campus, and it's a property we don't own, and that's where I had a big problem. We had the same conversation at this budget about it that we did last budget. So at some point, we either need to move on and not keep spending resources. I think there's been a little over $200,000 spent on it, and once again, we don't own it. Now, that's not county, it is county money, but it came out of the community college's budget. Other than that, last year the big deal too was sheriff's vehicles. We gave them, I believe it was 24 new vehicles last year. This year we gave them 8, which is a reasonable number, unlike 24 last year. 6 of those are county funds. 2 of them were satellites for Lucama down the city, which they pay for. It's essentially their police officer in their town. So the sheriff's budget was somewhat reasonable. We did ask for a 10% raise across the board, which we didn't do. We were able to spend some money and open up, not open, but Elm City Library, extend the hours for them so people can expand the Friday hours, which was very important. It's the same thing we did to Lucama, it was very popular, and we're able to do that. And another thing that's very near and dear to me is economic development. When I came on the board, we used to have a shell building fund that was defunded on the county side in 2011. And so that was a goal of mine to get that funded back at $1.2 million so that we can build a shell building which will bring in jobs and increase our tax base. We were able to put $1 million in the shell building account, not exactly where I wanted, but we were also able to increase Economic Development Council's budget. The city and county have always matched and funded their budget equally, and the last 3 years the county has cut back from what the city has done. So we didn't quite match what the city gave this year, but we're able to get $30,000 or so more this year, which I think is great. And you know, to touch a little bit on economic, well, I'll let Glenn talk more about economic development. Glenn sits on Wilson County Properties, he chairs that right now. So all in all, the budget was very well, and to talk a little bit about Glenn too, Glenn really helped me. I asked him to put together some questions, go over the budget, you know, hammer me with some questions. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And we spent, what, maybe?
I spent 3 hours together. I spent an additional 3 hours.
So we sat down 3 hours and came up with a list. And anyways, I think we have a good budget. One thing I'd like to see next year, and I don't know that we can get this because the will of the board is not there, but every year each department comes and says, you know, this is only 2% more than what our budget was last year. Yeah, and everybody constantly increasing their budget. Well, I'd like to have each department bring a 5% decrease, a 2% decrease, anything. Let's see what you can do to scale back your budget without hurting county services. So maybe that's something that we can move forward to. Anyways, I think I'll end it right there. I'm going to let Glenn's going to speak, and Glenn shares a lot of the values that I do and the goals for the county, so I'm going to let him hit on some of his goals, but I'll be glad to go ahead and answer some questions about the budget right now, or I'll be glad to answer questions about what's happened this year or concerns you have about the county, or anything that we can be doing better. So Joe, can I open up the question for him? Is that good? Anybody have any questions? Easy crowd. So we're doing a good job. Are we doing a good job?
You're doing a good job.
Okay. Good. Sit there where you can.
Very good.
Okay.
I think it's something later.